Hello and welcome to Seattle City Makers. I'm your host, Jon Scholes. Welcome to our latest episode, everybody. I'm joined by Joe Paganelli. Joe started his career in the Bay Area in the early 1990s, promoting and producing live concerts for the division of Bill Graham Presents, which was the precursor to Live Nation. He then had a stint at the incredible club, the Fillmore, in San Francisco, managing that venue before coming to Seattle to lead McCaw Hall. And most recently, Joe teamed up with Greg Lundgren and Steve Severin here in Seattle to remake and reimagine Bumbershoot and to deliver and open a 66,000 square foot contemporary arts center, now known as Cannonball Arts, in downtown Seattle just this past August. Joe and I discuss the third year of the Bumbershoot Festival since he and Greg and Steve took that over, and how they've reimagined it and carried forward some of the traditions, as well as the recent opening of Cannonball and what they are attempting to do with the remade and reimagined former Bed Bath & Beyond down on the corner of 4th and Virginia in downtown Seattle. We also talk about Joe's time at the Fillmore in San Francisco. He's got some great stories from managing that venue that he shares with us. Of course, our standard questions, Joe's first job, and stick around for his response to that one, and his perfect Saturday in the city of Seattle. Hope you enjoy my conversation with Joe Paganelli. Well, Joe, thanks for coming by on this. It feels like a August day out there. Man.
Can't beat a beautiful day in
this time
Seattle.
of year in this part of the country.
For sure.
Unbelievable. There's no better place to be. We're getting spoiled.
It's I don't know if it's global warming. It's the only aspect of global warming that may produce a side benefit of having these. Because, the fear with Bumbershoot is like Labor Day, it just starts raining, right?
That you're going to need a Bumbershoot.
And increasingly, I'm like, it's pretty good weather till November now.
Yeah, it's a little nice window.
And if it keeps doing this, then Seattle's going to become San Diego, where everybody already wants to live here, and it's going to be even more so.
Well, let's start there. You're coming off the year 2, right?
That was our third.
Year 3, yeah, of course, of the reincarnated, revitalized Bumbershoot that you and Greg Lundgren and Steve Severin have worked with the city and a bunch of other partners to
It's true.
bring back to life, but in a new way. How did it go?
We were saying before the podcast started, it was, number one, it was safe. And that's our third year with no arrests, no incidents, no medical.
It's amazing when you get a ton of people together. It's a good thing generally. As far as
I wear a certain
behavior.
hat. I wear the same hat every
More
year.
people in a public space is generally what we want.
That's right. Yeah, that's right. So we were successful in that primary mission of...
And in all seriousness, I imagine you all think a lot more about that, than we had to 10, 15 years ago. Maybe even since the first year you produced it, as given the way of the world and events and festivals and all of that. That's got to be that's a big burden and amount of stress to take on. You just want everybody to come have a good time and be safe.
It's a new consideration for sure, especially in light of the news this last week. And, we have to accommodate for all kinds of possibilities, more so than in the past, as you've noted. There are so many really solid, experienced people that fortunately I don't have to be the one that writes the emergency program, emergency instructions, but our festival director, Seattle Center, has super deeply experienced with their team. So we have a strong plan. Hopefully we never have to use it. But we had our third year without incident. And then there were some fantastic visual art and music moments. It's like building a house. When you put it on paper, the house looks amazing as architecture. Hopefully it does. But then when it's built and it's functioning, it sometimes functions differently than what you thought on paper. And we had a little bit of that year. It was a little heavier on rock and roll than we anticipated it to be. And you'd say, well, how could you not know that? But you're not in control of the artists in terms of what they play or how hard they play. You have a general idea. On Saturday, I was thinking, gosh, we might have booked a little too much rock and roll, because this is really supposed to be a festival about spirit of discovery. That's at the top of the mission. Visual spirit of discovery, music spirit of discovery, by day 2, when the women headliners were starting to pile in, we had a moment that to me was one of the most important moments in the last 3 years, which is where Sylvan Esso performed and went into Janelle Monáe. Janelle Monáe destroyed with a huge, house coming down performance. And I was scratching my head going, oh my God, who would want to follow that? That's somebody like Aurora's in trouble. Like, I can't believe that we put somebody after that set, because Janelle's like plays these huge like Grammy award show, wardrobe change, explosive energy moments. But Aurora came out, she's a phenom from Scandinavia, very young, almost a fantasy Scandinavian kind of like mythical type of music, esoteric and spatial, and
kind of an atmospheric
yeah,
quality to it.
Came out there strong and powerful like a pillar, just delivered in front of the mic, and you looked out, you saw 10,000 people watching. It was like, wow, it was a different kind of energy from Janelle Monáe's. But that was a musical moment that I think was important to the West Coast, because that was synonymous with what you would see at Outside Lands or Coachella. And that, I'm really proud of that moment. And then in the Fashion District, again, like a really great, creative, explosive district that has new and established fashion experiences happening along with the marketplace. So, those were a couple of the highlights, and it went really well.
In each of the last 3 years, you all have gotten some great reviews too, but Times and others. I mean, people feel, I think, really good about what you're producing and how you've evolved it, and people are responding by attending. And
the press has been kind, you know. Michael from Seattle Times in year 1 said, they planted the flag. They really brought it back, what people wanted to see. Again, we're going to keep relentlessly driving towards that spirit of discovery, which should permeate everything we do. I think festivals have a very long trajectory. I think Coachella lost money for 9 or 11 years. When you take over the reins of a 53-year-old festival, sometimes we get very impatient, thinking, by year 3, everything has to be right. And what I'm learning is it's a slower process than that. I think we're learning who we are as a team. We're learning what the audience wants. We're learning how to get in front of that and try to deliver what they want before they know they want it. And I think there's so much more to come. I think the spirit of discovery mantra at Cannonball downtown and the festival, I think we can exponentially get further into that. We're just learning who we are right now, which might sound ridiculous to people who are listening. Like, what does that even mean? But we're learning the space that we're working in. And when folks come back year after year, it allows you to take more risks and take more creative risks. So I'd like for Bumbershoot to ultimately be known as a place where you turn around and the line between who's a performer and who's in the audience starts to disappear, where people are dressing up for the experience and making it their own experience. I think that's yet to come. And for us to find music and visual artists that are most unexpected, either coming back when people thought they were done or not on tour and it's a special appearance.
Yeah, it's a really surprise and delight.
I think that's because we're not going to compete with Lollapalooza. We're not going to compete with Coachella. We live in the post-consolidation era where Live Nation and AEG are very powerful companies, and it's a mature business now. That consolidation started in the late 90s, so they're 25 years into the consolidation of bolting down most of the tours, the relationships with the artists, most of the venues.
Getting that scale and
Exactly.
How much of Bumbershoot and the way it was done before you all took over was influential to how you're doing it now? I mean, did you look at, what are the things we want to keep and build on, or was it more of a clean slate kind of moment when you took this over to say, like, what does Seattle and the region need now from a festival like this that happens to be on Labor Day? How did you sort of balance kind of the things that you thought worked well versus new ideas and energy to bring to bear? Great
question. A little bit of both. When we think about the history of Bumbershoot, I took a little detour to ask myself, like, what is the DNA of this festival and who else is doing it that way? who are the comparable projects, and Glastonbury came up over and over again as the festival that is also theatrical, visually flamboyant, a spirit of discovery, has a 52-year history, has ups and downs during that time, has leadership and ownership changes. So that was reassuring for me to see that it has been done. We know it has been done. It can be done, and it is continuing to be done. So that led me back to thinking about what was One Reel so successful, and that was the visual arts. And so when we found Greg Lundgren, and he was willing as a citywide, a city level or state level curator, which has its own attributes. Everybody wants to be the artist, but being the curator that has to plan it out and hire and engage the artists and clean up after is not always the most popular. But Greg does it very well. I think that we arrived at, to answer your question, a notion of everything old is new again. One Reel was so fantastic at having pop-up surprise performances and moments. So when we surveyed, walking around town for a year, asking people, hey, do you go to Bumbershoot? Or what do you know about Bumbershoot? What you can tell me? We got so much incredible data. And the two biggest drivers were, hey, it feels too expensive. There was a time when the festival was $50, $30. That's a little bit painful. That's some brand baggage that we have to deal with now, because today's economy does not allow for that, but we're still trying to do it to keep the price down. That was the first issue. And the second was bring the visual arts back.
And you've really leaned into that area.
Yeah.
Was the cat circus back?
It was. It was a 45-minute line the entire time. So if you read the Vice magazine, they just kept going what is going on in that cat circus? 45-minute wait to get into this tent. When I first went in and I saw all the cats, I went back to Greg. I'm like, what are you doing? You didn't tell me. I thought they actually do circus tricks. He's like, no, they don't. Of course they don't do any circus tricks. He's like, what is this? It's a community. It's a foster, home for cats. It's helping cats find new homes. But I went in there thinking there were going to be backflips and dancing on a.
You think any of those people in line did too?
I think probably, so. They must. But we did make a commemorative T-shirt. There will be a cat T-shirt every year, which was one of our
brilliant marketing
biggest sellers. No, who doesn't like? Oh, there's people who don't like cats, but yeah, we had the cat circus back. I think what shifted our thinking was how do you build relationship with Seattle Center as the venue, and that it's an extremely unique place to have a festival. It would be so much easier to go out to an empty field like Bonnaroo and just construct up, because you can do whatever you want. You just have to have the budget for it, but you have no limitation.
Yeah.
This is many resident tenants.
Yeah.
Very
playing well with others.
Yeah, you do. And I think for a long time it's been known that Bumbershoot is on Labor Day. We are the first promoters to have the rights to do more than that Bumbershoot can be more than just a festival on Labor Day. So we can launch all new programming verticals like what we're doing downtown. And we have a couple of other tricks up our sleeve of what we think Bumbershoot can be, but also produce on days that are not Labor Day. Yeah. So new locations, new dates of the year. Greg looked at Seattle Center and just thought it was a smorgasbord, like a feast of opportunity. I was like, oh, you can't touch this, and you can't.
You know all the ins and outs from your time leading McCaw Hall, right?
Running McCaw Hall, like
10 years there.
This is challenging. Yeah. Greg was like, no, it's an amazing place. So
he saw opportunity, he saw constraint.
He did. He looked at it as architecture, because Greg had some background in architecture. So he decided that there could be districts instead of just stages. And so there's a fashion district, there's a recess district. We had an animation district, which we're going to come back to for reasons we can chat about later, or not at all. But there can be limitless. The way Greg thought about it is there can be movements where there's a mobile art experience, like free range artists walking around. There can be an art expression which might have a little bit of footprint, but if it's successful, it grows into a district. So a district is sort of the mom or the dad of an art. Yeah. bigger budget, more community engagement, larger teams to produce that.
I imagine you're thinking of the Memorial Stadium, the new and improved, once it's all done, as a potential venue for Bumbershoot and maybe other things. But that seems like it's going to be a fabulous outdoor space.
We hope, yeah. I mean, the plans look amazing, and the folks putting it together have the capability and the success stories to articulate the how and why to get that done well. And we would love to be a part of that. There's nothing confirmed yet around that, but 27? We have another year of Bumbershoot before that could be a possibility.
And, is Bumbershoot kind of like painting a bridge? Like once you get done and you turn around and go the other way? I mean, now that you're done with 25, do you immediately get working and thinking about 26, or you get to take a breather?
Try to do both at the same time. We made the single mistake that we promised we wouldn't, which is open the 365, venue at the same time as
Cannonball.
Producing the festival.
Yeah,
Cannonball.
we'll get to that for sure.
So that
a couple of weeks before, right? Labor Day was
not planned, not intended. So the centrifugal force of the universe sucked these two things together and said, no, those are going to be. So that was exhausting. We like to take a break and try to cleanse the palate a little bit. We encourage people to take a trip, get out of town, change it up. But in today's festival economy, which we were chatting also about a little bit before the podcast, it's getting harder to do that. You actually have to start securing talent in October, November. You're seeing artists get locked into Coachella in May. That's the start of the season. So the agents are all out routing. And if you don't do that and you wait till January and February, which is what you'd like to do, cleanse the palate, take a rest, take a break.
Take a breather.
You're dealing with the scraps.
Yeah.
And the agents have already booked through and they're not coming to Seattle, or they are coming to Seattle and they're going to play WAMU or play the Arena or one of our many great venues. So it's hard to, it's a year round, it's really it's a through line, it's not got a beginning, middle, and an end. You got one hand in settling the festival, saying, let's get all the artists paid and figure out what the P&L looks like, and turning around at the same time and saying, what does our programming schedule look like for next year?
And you mentioned in the middle of trying to deliver the 30-year Bumbershoot, you all opened 66,000 square foot contemporary arts center in the former Bed Bath & Beyond. How's it going? And maybe backing up from there, like how did this idea originate? I mean, it's been discussed and sort of out there for some time that you were looking to bring this to downtown, and you were in conversations with Kleist Properties, who owns the building, and it was sometime before it materialized and you were able to open the doors. What's the origin story on it?
Sure. Well, first of all, thank you for DSA's support and attention. As I've learned more about what you do, I see how incredibly powerful and meaningful it is to have a group of people so dedicated to caring about the safety, the experience of people in downtown, and how Seattle operates differently than other cities. I've not lived in all cities across America. I only have a couple of examples in LA and San Francisco, but there's sort of the sense in LA that nobody in Eagle Rock or Echo Park really gives an S about what's happening in Santa Monica or, west of the 405 in Venice, right? And Seattle is so much more centrally focused, and maybe you don't see it that way with your experience, but we really appreciate the people, not just this DSA, but our electeds and our donors and sponsors, and everyone does carry a through line of being very fiercely proud about Seattle and also connecting and helping each other, not always for money, right? Not always for deals or relationships, just because. So
yeah, I don't think right. I think I've always said the secret sauce about this place is like, whether you're born here or you sort of found your way here, you generally don't want to leave. So you kind of have this self-interest in making it better, right? For you, for your kids, for your grandkids.
Sure.
And so we're all sort of invested maybe from our own self-interest.
What else is it too? What is the other fact? Seattle's not a script that's finished. Like LA seems like a finished script. What else? If you're going to do something,
we're still relatively young. and there's the opportunity to create and be part of and shape. And if you want to stick around for it, which most people do, you're not necessarily trying to get somewhere else. Not all of us, but a lot of us. Yeah, I think we want to stick around for it.
Yeah, there's so much opportunity,
So you felt a lot of community as you all were embarking on this. But so where did the kernel of the idea come from to create this center, this 365-day experience that's very different than Bumbershoot?
I think it was a collision of ideas. I when we responded to Seattle Center's RFP, we knew that there were better funded, larger companies who may respond to the RFP, and we were small and scrappy and unfunded, and we had some time to think about what it could and should be. And that's, when we decided that there needs to be a nonprofit component to this and a B Corp component to this so that we would have the best of both worlds and engage Seattle's influential business and community leaders to help support Bumbershoot and support the concept of celebrating the rich cultural fabric that is Seattle, not just music, but arts and fashion and coders and developers. And Greg's
But that RFP was really specific, if I recall, to Bumbershoot, right? Those 3 days, that festival as we knew it, Seattle Center campus, and you all sort of broke apart those boundaries on it.
We opened it up and said, what if the nonprofit's role is to launch the workforce development program where we're going to train the next generation of arts and music producers from marginalized communities? And what if we put the P&L of the festival, which hasn't had a history of making money, it's had a history of being immensely memorable. Everybody has a Bumbershoot story that's lived here. Let's put that in the nonprofit side. And then it's New Rising Sun, the B Corp's job, to manage and operate that festival, because we can attract a slate of experienced art producers, venue managers, talent buyers, and promoters who would normally not show up at a nonprofit, or could, but there are nonprofits that have those functions. But bringing that into the B Corp side and then saying it's New Rising Sun's job to launch all new programming verticals, concepts, and ideas in partnership with City of Seattle and Bumbershoot, who will be a box office participant in those projects. And that was unknown. That could look like going out and having community engaged food farm to I'm not saying, we didn't even complete this concept. You can tell as I'm trying to experience it. Like, what if we went out to some great farm properties surrounding Seattle and showed the process of what healthy food looks like to inner city folks who don't have that experience of farm fresh, right? And it could be more like a Dave Matthews or Andrew Bird performance with, we were coming up with these ideas of what else is Bumbershoot.
Yeah.
Greg has taken over the lease on properties in very temporary ways over a 25-year period, and has done this over and over again, and had Out of Sight, which was Pacific Northwest, one of the larger contemporary art shows. And so I think he was harboring in his mind all along, what does a major downtown project look like?
Yeah.
And so I think he'd been watching Bed Bath & Beyond. It was empty. How many was it? 6 years it was empty?
Yeah, a number of years.
And he was like, if you're going to go downtown, let's go big. And I was like, Greg, you are crazy. This is never going to work. And we should run, not walk to the nearest exit on taking this project.
60,000 plus.
Super intimidating. And last summer, when it was really warm, we spent that summer removing 80,000 pounds of merch rack, which covered every single wall and pillar. And Greg, and loading it into trucks and dropping it off at the transfer station to peel back what Greg believed was this beautiful 1920 concrete cast octagonal columns to peel back. Kind of like Rick Rubin when he produces a band is like, hey. Let's go back to your origins and strip away all of the adornments, right? Neil Diamond, I don't want to see the disco and the glitter. I want to see what it looks like for you to have an acoustic guitar in your hand. Yeah. And that scares people, right?
Oh, I love what he did. I think it was Tyler Childers' new album. He didn't strip much away.
Okay. In that case, just let it ride.
There was a lot that was brought to. Anyway.
That's right. So I have to say that Greg really was driving us to have a 365 Bumbershoot experience. I do not have experience with art centers or museum or gallery culture. Greg was adamant from the beginning, which you'll see in the DSA video that looks beautiful. We were just watching that. He doesn't want it to be describable with one word. It's not a gallery. It's not a museum. It's experiential. And so Meow Wolf being the example that everybody's heard that name and it became $1 billion business was more about the immersive. And immersive's become a little bit of a pat word that everybody uses for anything. But I think interactive is a great way to say it. We can produce things that grow and are successful inside the venue, and they move into the festival. And we can take things like the Fashion District that are very popular in the festival and bring them back into the venue. So that became part of the synergistic opportunity for these projects.
Have a relationship between the two.
Yeah.
So how's it? So it's not quite a month since you opened the doors, but coming up on a month.
Yeah.
How's it been going?
It's a little slower. We focused heavily on the festival. The opening night was awesome. Yeah. I think there were 1,500 people came through. We sold a lot of tickets. Folks in the community, I think it was Holly Hinton from Starbucks, was like, wow, like I'm seeing OG original gangster artists from the 80s. I'm seeing established artists from the 2000s. And then there's new and yet to be discovered artists. It had the feeling of the Andy Warhol factory. People were dressed.
It was a bit of an inspiration for
it was
the center.
Let's be the downtown factory artist hub. And David Byrne has a book called How Music Works. And Greg and I were looking through it. And in it, he's basically like, I'm not going to tell you how to launch a venue or be a promoter, but I will talk a little bit about how to create a scene. And I think what DSA is doing, I think what some of the programming that's coming up in downtown Seattle is happening is a scene is getting created. And that's different than a business, right? And so what David says in the scene is invite all the artists for free. And when you do that, you're thinking, well, I can't afford to do that. We need to sell tickets to them. That you should also give them free bar. And you're like, how do you make any money doing this? But he's like, but CBGB's was the scene that ultimately sells tickets because the mainstream they see what's going in there. They go, wow, do you see how creative and the long line
around that?
Yeah, you want that long line out in front that people are dressed a certain way, like the people who are at the epicenter of creative. And so that's what we did on the opening night. Almost 1,000 community stakeholders and artists were invited, but we also put it on sale, which is not a smart move for a promoter. Like the promoter in me was like, Greg, we're not doing this, right? But we did it and it worked. And so how do we do that on a quarterly basis so that we can be the hub where people can have those artistic, creative conversations, which they will have elsewhere. And there's a number of things popping up around downtown, but maybe ours is a larger larger footprint to do that. And that part was successful. How to hook into tourism is a much harder
so they know
piece of the equation.
How do they know you're there, right? Yeah.
That's the challenge we have ahead of us. And, we'll be transparent in saying everybody wants the tourism ticket. Everybody wants the tourism attention. And you're up against the Space Needle and SDG and Seattle Center. And so we haven't cracked that code yet. We have a lot of work to build strategic partnerships that we started to build along the way, but we got a little distracted opening the venue and producing the festival. And we've got to really double down and put those deals together where we're not just showing up saying, what can you give us, but how can we support what you're doing and be meaningful to your agenda? And in turn, perhaps that means that it's reciprocated. And so that's where our work will be for the next 4 months and getting ready for next year, right? The big, like the water barrel that has all the fish is FIFA bringing 900,000 people to Seattle that want to see what are the 10 most popular things.
Of those folks to come through the doors and experience and see what you've done.
That's the goal. So Fortunately, we're paying for some of our mistakes now, and that allows us the time to be ready for when the big opportunity rears up. And we're also going to launch the music component of the venue that we opened as an art center. And hopefully in October, November, we'll be launching the music component in there as well. So
and that's in the ground floor, kind of basement.
We're calling it level one.
Level one, yeah. With pretty phenomenal audio.
Yeah. Yes. Did you see it?
I did. Yeah.
It's a little unnerving, the size of those sound towers.
It's imposing.
There are 6.
I didn't hear them yet. I've just seen them.
Oh, cool. Come down. You've got to come down. Let's choose a record.
Oh, we can do that.
Bring 20 people from here in the office or friends.
Oh,
and
we're
we'll
doing
just
that.
sit around and listen for 30 minutes to an album. It's pretty, if you're listening and you haven't been down to the venue, we engaged a sound fabrication artist in New York City. And we asked ourselves, like, this is a very concrete industrial space. What would it look like if we replicated some of the killer clubs from the 90s in London, like Fabric? And so he went out and said, let's create an ultra efficient sound system, because the technology is different today, right? It used to be huge amps and huge equipment. You can plug most of this stuff into a 20 amp circuit, which is shocking. Wow. And there's these 10-foot sound towers with a wall that is 8 feet high of subwoofer. And it creates a runway of sound that John's describing. That, we have fantastic partners. We can't mention them yet, but we have a partnership that we're working on that will attract the most creative, up and coming and known electronic music artists of the world. So we can't wait to reveal and unveil that.
So that'll be a regular occurrence there. Yeah.
As often as we can. Yeah. We got to work around, and, we're hoping to do some rentals and be a good partner corporate wise. And we're open 5 days a week for the community and artist and tourist ticket. And then at night it flips and becomes 21 and over. And we'll produce electronic music in that space.
It feels like there's downtown's having this sort of arts and culture and experiential moment with, First Thursday and their great numbers in Pioneer Square this summer. I think Axios covered that, and just a real strong return of folks coming to take part in all that First Thursday has to offer. Basecamp Studios down the street from you all, and then another location in Belltown. And we've had Nick Federer on. Of course, what you all have done, the waterfront and public art and programming. There's STG put out some great numbers, or maybe they're not public just yet. But I was talking to Josh over there this last week, and they had a great summer at the Paramount. And,
the Seattle Times article.
Yeah, and the Times covered their growing empire at Remlinger and other places, right? So
good for them.
Do you feel like there's this sort of unique moment and interest and in more arts and culture and experiences and being together and kind of blurring the lines from what these experiences are here in Seattle? It sure seems like there's this great energy. Gage Academy of Arts, to name another. I mean, they moved downtown a year or so ago, down off Westlake. But arts seems to be a big part of our revitalization.
There does seem to be a movement afoot, doesn't there? It's when I was just back in New York City visiting my daughter who lives there, and I think the incredible attraction of Brooklyn or Manhattan is that you're walking through downtown, and every block has unexpected artists, creators, bars, DJ, clothing, fashion, all of it. And it's what attracts all of us to New York City, as having this pulse that never fades. And you're starting to see that lacework, right? That lacework, interconnecting lacework in Seattle come together. Now, I've only been here 8 or 9 years, and folks who've been here 25 or 30 have probably seen ebbs and flows in that process. But the recovery of downtown after COVID is a monumental feat. And while there were some people who were probably very fearful that this would never happen, I think Richard Florida spoke at one of the downtown, and he said, people come, there's a fourth dimension, right? People live, work, and play downtown. But what we learned in COVID is that they still came downtown even though they couldn't play or work. So why was that? It's because they need to connect.
Yeah.
And I think that connection energy seems to be taking off. And that's super exciting. We don't look at it as competition. We look at it as, man, if we can get hundreds of thousands of people to be coming to downtown, sticking their head in the door and saying, what is that DJ music? Why is that fashion rack hanging out? What is that function that's happening? That is the pulse that never fades, that creates critical mass. And, we're not, you would know better than I, are we at critical mass yet for downtown? But it's building, right? And what's another? Walk, don't run is another art experience that's happening. So we're very excited about all of that.
The Seattle Art Fair, Forest for the Trees. And it's great. Like these folks just stepping up in a lot of ways and just like, oh, we're going to go do this. And then connecting with somebody else that's going to help them out.
And what I'd like to
build on it year after year.
And maybe you have some thoughts on this, but one difference that I could tell recently from that New York trip is that there are a lot of very small and scrappy, self-produced folks in New York in that little 200 square foot storefront. And having gone through the process for the first time of opening a venue in downtown Seattle, there are challenges. Fortunately, we are partnered with City of Seattle as Bumbershoot. So my gosh, we have an advantage where we got to lean on that partnership a little, but making it possible for the small artist to have their personal fashion experience in a small space is what is that grassroots component, because it does feel a little bit like if you're not well funded, it's a tough lift.
Yeah, not everybody can take on a 66,000 square foot
or a 20,000 or a 15 or a 10,000 square foot space, because we are now at a point, and this also came up in this year's Downtown Summit, of the challenges of how to get past all the, not get past, but how do you collaborate with the rules and regulations and permits and requirements. They're all there for safety and make sense, but also make it sometimes potentially impossible for someone to go like, that's thousands and thousands of dollars by the time I get through the fire safety. And so that was
No, I think that's right. There's this balance, and our downtowns in the US way back when were created because they were these porous places where people kind of come in with an idea or a little bit of capital, take a risk, and they didn't need a ton. And we still benefit from those who were able to do that. I mean, the Pike Place Market is a example of that. So how do we keep them porous? I think is a key question and important. So you still have a day job in all of this, right?
If you call showing up each day, working with creative people to come up with imagination work, yes.
But you're coming up on not quite 10 years, but close, right? At McCaw Hall?
Well, that day job. So I did separate from McCaw Hall.
So you
a little bit after we secured the rights for Bumbershoot. We wanted to make sure that the ethical and appropriate separations to be like an employee of the city.
You had a long tenure there.
I was there 7 years. Yeah, it was great. I learned a lot and got to witness the genius and beauty of Seattle Opera and Pacific Northwest.
That's good. That makes me feel better about myself, because I was wondering how you were still doing all of that and all of that we've talked about. So.
That's right. There are two. You need to clone yourself, John.
Yeah,
that's how
you can't still be doing this McCaw gig, but okay, that this is tracking now.
Yeah,
and just going back a little further in your career, you had a long stint at the Fillmore in San Francisco as well, right? And do you have a favorite memory or moment from that iconic
Many,
club?
Many. I was fortunate at that crossroads where many of us get to if I don't know what I want to do with my life. And I had done some summer jobs and taken some jobs after college that didn't work out, but I decided I wanted to take a try at music, and I flew to LA and literally walked into the lobby of Capitol Records and was like, can I talk to someone about a job? They're like, no, this is the lobby of Capitol Records. This is for tourists, So that didn't work out. And through a family connection, got a meeting where they said that there may be a job open at Bill Graham Presents, who was the prominent 1960s promoter for 35 years with Grateful Dead and The Doors and Led Zeppelin and Allman Brothers and Jimi Hendrix and Miles Davis, all the things. And so when I arrived, I had to try out for the job, which was answering phones and filing, and I didn't pass the cut. They brought me back for a second attempt because I think I bungled it the first time, but I'd gotten through on a recommendation. And they were relaunching the Fillmore Auditorium. It had been damaged in the Loma Prieta earthquake that interrupted the World Series. And so that was sort of the second or third golden age of the Fillmore. So we had 20 sold out nights with Tom Petty while I was there, which is a groundbreaking. I think Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers had decided that they had seen it all since the 70s. It was the mid-90s. They had made records. They had won awards. They had toured forever.
Yeah.
And I think Tom was really
tired of being on the road.
Questioning, yeah. And so president of the company called Demetriadis, who's the manager at the time. It was like, why don't you come be the house band at the Fillmore? And they're like, what? Why would we do that? And Greg was like, why not do it? You can have any special guests. So there was Roger McGuinn from the Byrds played. Carlos Santana came and played. So many... John Lee Hooker came and played. 20 nights was incredible. We had 3 nights with Metallica in a 1,200 cap building, and they literally pushed the sound system to within 99% of blowing up, and still had crystal pure sound. That was pretty incredible. And then Prince. We had 4 nights with Prince. And, I didn't understand that he was a Jimi Hendrix level guitar player. I always knew that Prince was mad talented, crazy skills, but watching him really cut on the guitar and a small stage was phenomenal. So you saw these legends coming through, but we were also developing new acts like Radiohead and Oasis. No one knew who these bands were. Weezer, who just played the last Bumbershoot. The whole alternative UK wave was coming over in the late 90s, early 2000s. So it was an extraordinary experience. At the time, I wasn't as thankful. I didn't realize that only happens once in your life. And in some cases for people, it never happens. And I, of course, being a self-centered person, wanted more and was always pushing. And, I look back now and just go, oh, Joe, just stop. That was amazing. I was at Bill Graham Presents for 13 years. It became Live Nation while I was there. I decided it was time for me to go as it was becoming more corporate. But I got to have those times.
Yeah, what a ride.
Crazy. And so many cool people hanging out. The scene that we talked about earlier in the episode, like you had Sean Penn hanging out. You had the Metallica guys love supporting other small bands perform. So they would call and just say, can we come down? You say, yes. You develop a relationship with the band. But they were like, this incredible band is coming and we have to see it. We need box seats for that. Of course, we'll put you in box seats. And they were like, it's going to be really quiet though. You need to shut the cash registers off at the bar in order for them to play. And I was like, get the F out of here. We're not going to do that. Like, this is crazy. Like, that's not a good practice for cash registers. They should be opening. The band was
not good for business.
It's not good for business. The band was Sigur Rós. And if you've not heard of them, you should check them out. But it's very orchestral, symphonic, Scandinavian, deeply instrumental, with a singer who creates his own language while singing. It's not, in some of the records, he has created a separate language. And it was extraordinary. Like and Lars is sitting there in the booth with his fist raised going, yeah, yeah, when the show's over, because they are supporters, of that creativity. And that's what we'd like to create at Cannonball and at Bumbershoot, is that special moment where we're either discovering or we're celebrating legacy.
You hinted at other potential verticals. What do you mean by that? What can you say?
So try to keep it limited, because the moment you talk about it and then you get pinned for not doing it. But we did insert this a little bit at last year, the second Bumbershoot Festivals. When I was living in Los Angeles, everybody has a screenplay, everybody's working on a pilot, everybody's got a movie they're making, right? And so you learn to become very numb to that, right? And some people walk around with a t-shirt that says, I'm working on my pilot, right? But my next door neighbor was doing that, and he was immersed in the animation world. He eventually got to a position where he was running the Jim Henson Studio, which was responsible for the world famous Muppets and developing animated film content. We've stayed in touch over the years. He's a very dear friend. And at some point he was like, is Seattle a tech town? And I'm like, well, what do you think? and he's like, well, there really isn't a United States based animation conference hub. You've got to go to Annecy if you want to, in France, to go to the Sundance version. You've got to go to Italy if you want the conference version. You've got to go to Germany if you want the movie theater version. And we have a film festival here. It's very successful, longstanding SIFF. But this is about attracting the world's greatest minds in animation. And if you watch the Super Bowl, 8 out of 10, every 10 commercials is a animated or computer generated component to commercials. So Jason Lust is his name. 2 years ago or 3 years ago, he won the Oscar for Pinocchio with Guillermo del Toro. And I was like, okay, boom, doors are open now. Like, it's like Jason's phone's going to start ringing. But he was like, let's really bring it. And Seattle's a little insular in the sense of like, Seattle has that strong pride of everything can be from Seattle, of Seattle, for Seattle. Do not go attracting LA, right? You don't want to, we already have enough attention. We don't need LA, We don't need it.
We'll take some of it right now, I think.
But I think in this case, we're going to try to marry what Greg believes is the extraordinarily deep set of creators and makers of animation technology in Seattle with
gaming,
huge. People who work tech jobs also are makers and hobbyists in animation. There's a filmmaker community here. There's gaming, as you said. Let's marry that with Jason's network of, Henrik Fett, who created Fantastic Mr. Fox with, oh my gosh, it's like, who's our famous filmmaker from Fantastic Mr. Fox? I'm drawing a blank here. Let's look it up. Wes Anderson.
Okay,
sorry.
Sure.
Took me a minute. It's having a mental pause there. Let's bring Wes Anderson's team. Let's bring Guillermo del Toro's team. Let's bring Peter Jackson from The Hobbit. They all know each other. It's a tight-knit community. And let's celebrate achievement with awards for animation for filmmakers from Seattle and national or international. Let's have pillars to this conference that talk about what's happening with AI, what's happening with tools, because filmmakers are using gaming tools to create movies now. Let's have guest speakers. One of the partners they want to bring, if GeekWire from Seattle had a baby with IMDb from Amazon, it would be the Worldwide Animation Worldwide Network, AWN. That guy is also involved, where if you want to read anything about the latest news, and he's interviewed everybody in the animation world for the last 20 years. So he's like, if you want the head of Netflix, we can get that. If you want the head of Pixar, we can get that. If you want the director of the new Spider-Man series that is a different slant on Spider-Man, like, we can bring that creator in, these award-winning creators. Let's bring all of that and make Belltown an animation district. And so Muckleshoot Indian Tribe is our partner at Cannonball. They've been incredibly supportive, as has Seattle Center. And we brought that, they invited us to Annecy. So some of the tribe members came to Annecy in France and saw it. And we're just like, oh, okay, we get this. We would support this. And so I think that's another great way to light up downtown, is to invite the public to put animation content in their windows, shining it down onto the street, which allows them to be curators, and use many of the small venues, Eavesdrop, Crocodile. You can think of all these different, maybe an empty office building where you set it up where it looks like a documentary film set, where there's some spotlights and a table, and you and I are sitting there talking to Guillermo del Toro about what made, Pinocchio successful. And then in Cannonball, let's make that the hub where you hang out, network. It's a conversion hub, bringing the best minds to talk about tools, talk about relationships, talk about projects. And then in the downstairs, let's make that the hands-on, visceral feeling of the physical aspects of animation, not digital, that are the reasons why the Guillermo del Toros got into the business in the first place. The wardrobe pieces. There's a show called Blue-Eyed Samurai on Netflix. It's amazing. And they went back and discovered the fabrics that were used in feudal Japan from the year 1200 and brought them back to life in an animated way. You could make those and have physical manifestations of those, or projects like the Homies that have 150 figurine characters. So let's have just an incredible bazaar of activities that make people walk in and see the physical aspects as well as digital, because I believe that when we flood people's brain with the digital, something's missing on half of their brain, and you want to kind of combine both of these dynamics, and that's what we're going for. We'll see if may not happen in 2026, but we start these conversations, and that's just another example. It's not, again, to anybody who's listening, like it's not done, it's not launched, it's not happening yet, but that's the kind of architecture that Bumbershoot can be that as well. And Seattle downtown is perfectly aligned to do something like that and have people come in from all over the world who feel passionately about that space.
Super cool. Well, something for us
Sorry for taking so long.
Keep our eyes on. No, that's super exciting. Joe, a couple of questions, standard questions before we wrap. One, what was your first job that you took a paycheck for?
I saw this. My first job was digging graves.
Wow, we haven't had that one yet.
Not kidding. You probably haven't heard that one yet.
Yeah.
I'm the last of 8 kids from an Italian family in a small town in upstate New York.
Yeah.
My dad was a small town doctor. Everybody had to get a job when you were 16, but for me, because I was in the last one, 15. That's 1 year before it was legal to work. So he asked a client or a patient if they would hire me and put me on the landscaping crew. Well, my brother's a year older, and he got on the truck and they went off and started working on really beautiful houses and I just went off in this pickup truck with a bunch of grumpy dudes, and we got there and like, why are we entering the cemetery? And so cemeteries need care and need work too.
Yeah.
But because there's headstones, you can't drive a piece of equipment on there to do the work. So you go out with the shovel and you dig the grave. So that was my job at the age of 50.
Did they pay you like per grave, or was it a per hour deal?
That was $7 an hour.
$7 an hour.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm dating myself, so I'm older than you, but yeah. So that was
that's formative, I guess.
The way I like to share that is I began my work career thinking of how it ends, and I hope I end my career thinking of how it begins, birthing new ideas and new creations. But yes, I did take the opportunity to lay down in the first grave that I dug and look up and say, like, this is my horror movie moment of what does this look like to look up.
Well, you got to make sure there's enough room, and the dimensions that you got those right.
That's it.
Were there any adults around at this time that sort of thought maybe this wasn't the thing for a 15-year-old to be doing?
Not a single one.
This might sort of scar your development path.
They're
like, we need a grave dug.
It was the 1980s in a small town, so it's builds character.
Yeah.
That's what it does,
Wow.
I learned it takes 4 hours and 45 minutes to dig.
Well, if I ever need help building a fence and digging those fence post holes, I'm calling.
You got it. You got it. I won't offer to help dig your grave. That's not friendly or even.
Wow. Yeah, that's a first. I don't think we're going to have that one again.
Everything was easy after that. Put it that way. I'm thankful.
Yeah.
Everything was easy.
And then our final question is, what's your perfect Saturday in Seattle?
Oh, gosh. Well, there's so much to that. First, I like waking up and walking the dog. Almost everybody in Seattle has their favorite canine relationship. So I do that. When it's summertime, I like to go to Seward Park and jump off the dock and just have that incredible cleansing splash in Lake Washington that lets you know you can get up and do it again. Seattle's food scene is incredible. So there's a multitude of food locations in Columbia City. Beacon Hill now has a restaurant row, if nobody is aware of that. But you've got some great things there. And come down to Cannonball, open the doors, do some work. There's a little Filipino breakfast shop about a block away from Cannonball. I can't remember the name, but I can't. Ludi's.
Oh, yeah.
I got to try Ludi's.
Yeah,
there's a line.
Get through the line.
What's going on with that? We need to know.
Yeah, the marketing that they're doing there. I don't know if it's on social or elsewhere, but Yeah.
It's working.
It's working. It's amazing the number of people that will stand outside.
Yes. It means you gotta check it out. And then Seattle Center. I love Seattle Center in the fall when the sun's going down and the leaves are changing and it's a little quieter. And if you breathe in, you can really smell the history of what that uptown location means to people and how long it's been stewarded and protected. It's like you look for the quiet moments on that campus where you just the Space Needle's behind you. And it's just been a great gathering space. And it's the landscaping's beautiful. The gardening, the union gardening team there is extraordinary, and every plant is accounted for and created. So those are a few. There's so many more. On the spot, I'm not sure I can land it as well as others.
Saturday. And I got to laugh that the Bumbershoot guy is lifting up the quiet moments on the Seattle Center campus. You're responsible for bringing noise and
when
energy.
You're around 20,000 people, and I found this in the industry, is there's this habit of trying to get away from it as much as possible. So you talk to Gloria, who's our festival producer, you talk to people who've been in the business, and like what you find is we look for the opposite, right? Like if you're around 30, 25,000 people at shows all the time, you're just like, it creates something that makes you want to be more alone and have the quiet moments. So yin and yang.
Totally. I know that feeling, and balance is a good thing. So, well, thanks, Joe, for making time for this. Could talk to you all afternoon.
Likewise.
And thanks for what you all are doing.
Thank you.
The investment and creativity that you're bringing to our city. It's super cool, and we're here to support and amplify in whatever way we can. And I know lots of other people are too. So
thank you guys.
To the folks listening, if you haven't gotten to Cannonball, get into Cannonball. It's pretty spectacular, and keep an eye on what these guys are up to.
Righteous. Thank you so much. Thanks, John. It's good to see you.
Yeah, you too. I hope you enjoyed my conversation with Joe. Thanks to him for coming on Seattle City Makers and for all the great things he's bringing to our city. He is truly a city maker, and great to have Cannonball open downtown and to see all that they've done to reimagine and reinvent Bumbershoot, and to see everybody responding. Great reviews, people loving it. It's been a terrific festival for so many years, and great to have it under their leadership. So thanks again, Joe. Want to close out with a recommendation of something to check out in downtown Seattle, and want to highlight some new things over at the Museum of Pop Culture. Headed by our friend and a former guest on Seattle City Makers, Michelle Smith. They've recently reopened, or I should say opened, some new food and beverage offerings at the Museum Culture Kitchen and the Lounge. 2 brand new spaces with great food and drink, and you don't need a museum ticket to take part. So check out their website, mopop.org, for more information. And if you're over on the campus of Seattle Center for an upcoming Kraken game or other events, be sure to pop into Mopop and see what they have in store. Well, thanks again for joining us, everybody, on this episode of Seattle City Makers, presented by the Downtown Seattle Association, with support from James Cito and production by Thread Theory.